Hey guys, welcome to Essentials, where we teach you essential techniques or the basics of everything cooking and baking related. So the essential thing that we're gonna learn today is the moist chocolate cake. A lot of ingredients, but super simple process, and we're gonna pair it with the classic chocolate ganache. Right, whenever we bake cakes or make pastries, we always have to do one important thing, which is preheating your oven to the desired temperature. In this case, it's 350 Fahrenheit. And we also have to line our pan with parchment paper or wax paper. I'm gonna show you a technique. Just grab a square, fold it into a triangle, give it another fold. So it's like, what is this? This second, third, until you get something as thin as this. It's gonna be like an ice cream cone. So you just have to find the center of your pan, and we are gonna cut along the edge, which doesn't have to be a perfect circle. It just has to cover the whole pan. There. Next, we are gonna grab ourselves some all-purpose flour, then combine it with our baking soda and baking powder. And last is our white sugar. You want to make sure there are no lumps. The baking soda and baking powder is well distributed. Set this aside. Now we're gonna have two wet mixtures. One is gonna be milk, some oil, and your egg. Crack some eggs here. Oil. And then our milk. Okay, so the milk is gonna make your cakes taste creamier. And last for this mixture is the vanilla extract. Set this aside. Now it's time for our last liquid mixture. You need a cup of hot water, boiling, straight from boiling. I'm gonna add about 1 tablespoon of instant coffee. So what the coffee does is it helps accentuate the cocoa powder, makes the chocolate flavor more intense. Some salt, and then our cocoa powder. Right, we're doing this to bloom the cocoa so that we won't have any lumps. And this also helps our cake become super moist. For the last part of the batter making process, this is our flour mixture and our egg mixture. We're not gonna add the hot cocoa mix yet. We're gonna add that for the last part. This part is important. Never overmix your batter, meaning don't be too intense, be as gentle as you can. So it's a bit thick, but when we add our hot liquid mixture, you'll end up with a thinner batter. The thinner the batter, the moister it is when you bake it, but it'll take longer, right? So you don't want to overmix your batter, and at the same time, you don't want it to wait, because we have both acid, which comes from the cocoa powder, and heat. So that means the chemical leaveners will be activated. So make sure your oven's preheated. You just want to fill the cake pan about 2/3 of the way up. Now, before I put this in the oven, I'm just gonna give it a few love taps. Yeah, just pop some bubbles if there are any. Pop it in the oven for 25 to 30 minutes. May go up to 35, depends on your oven. Don't forget to keep the door closed and only open it after the 25-minute mark. Because what happens is whenever you open the door, the temperature drops down and the batter will be affected. The whole cake will be affected by that, right? So the best pair for our moist chocolate cake is, of course, the most basic icing ever for me, which is the chocolate ganache. Because it's only like 3 ingredients: chocolate, cream, and butter. So first, I'm just gonna transfer my chocolate chips into a bigger bowl. I should have put it there in the first place. There you go. Just gonna put my butter there, around 2 tablespoons. And then I'm gonna heat up some cream. I'm not gonna boil it. I'm just gonna bring it to a soft simmer. We don't want to overboil things and burn your cream. It might curdle too. So we really have to watch it. This is good enough. So make sure to cover the surface, all of the surface. Right. I'm gonna leave it there for a minute, and then I'm gonna mix it. We're gonna give it a mix. Looks weird at first, but the more you mix it, eventually it'll turn into a solid chocolate color. When it comes to chocolate ganache, my advice is to never skimp on the chocolate. Always get the best. Right, so we're gonna set this aside. We're not gonna put this in the fridge. Just room temperature. Cover it with a plastic wrap or whatever you have. All we have to do now is wait for the cake. So one way to check if your cake is fully baked is if you press on it, it springs back up. Okay? Now, if you press on it and there's like an indent or a dent, that means your cake is a bit underbaked. I have a very thin knife. Make sure it's thin. Run it through the sides, being careful not to cut your cake. And since we put the parchment paper at the bottom, no need to worry. Flip it. Let's see. There you go. Right, so carefully remove the parchment paper. Do not forget to remove the parchment paper. Just kidding, better to flip it. Give it like 5 minutes before cutting. If you cut it right after taking it out from the oven, it's just gonna crumble because it's still too soft. So you have to let it set a bit. So the cake's cooled down completely and my ganache is all set. It's not super hard, but spread it. See? Stands on its own. So I'm gonna trim the top of my cake. So just make sure your knife is leveled. I haven't mastered this yet myself, but very small motions. And there you go. Right, so what I can do is, so if you have a cake board, I'd put a bit of some ganache so that it sticks. Flip. Yeah. See? Now it's all flat. I'll show you this cool gadget that I have. It's a cake turner. Again, you can just do this. Slowly use the length of your knife to go back and forth. There you go. Now it's time for assembly. Just gonna place this over here. I'm gonna put like, see, if your cake is too warm, it's just gonna melt, and then when you cut your cake, the filling will be like super tiny. Now you want that extra layer of ganache there. Put this in the fridge for at least 5 minutes, and then we will go back to icing the whole thing. So before you cut into your cake, make sure you can chill it for at least an hour before you serve it. But if everyone's just too excited, go ahead and dig in. But for me, I really like that. I really like seeing that layer of icing filling inside, and then the cake ready to slice, ready to eat. A tip when it comes to cutting your cake, if you're using a knife, make sure you have hot water beside you, and all you have to do is put it over that, and it goes through the cake easily. Okay. But before I do the taste test, let me show you a way to preserve your cake after slicing. Get your wax paper or parchment paper. Just fold it so that it makes an angle like this. Put this between your cake like that. Let it touch the sides. And by doing this, you will keep the cake's moisture. That's what they do in cafes or restaurants too. The base of the cake is very moist, and it's perfectly balances out with the premium ganache that we made. When you guys try this at home, you can change the dark chocolate to milk chocolate to white chocolate, or add some coffee to your cream before adding it there. That's the reason why this moist chocolate cake recipe and ganache is essential for me. It's because from there, so many possibilities for you guys to make. One more bite before I go.